All right. Good afternoon. This is Penelope Flynn, and the remainder of your Blerdsassins Next Door is Cranston, Sonia, Nikki. Expecting Otto to jump in pretty soon, and this is our true inaugural discussions from the Otherhood show that was moved to Sunday. And right now it is Sunday, 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central, noon Pacific. So we're hoping that you all would, mark your calendars, change them up, so you'll be able to join us on Sundays. Today, our topic, if you've seen it, is we're discussing our heroes and when ignorance was bliss before we saw the seamy side of our heroes. And we'll start out, Cranston, about your weather. How is the weather where you are in
Yeah, I
Texas?
think it is finally decided that it is going to be spring/summer, that the days have been in the upper 70s and lower 80s, and even at night, it's still pleasant when you go out at night. And the street lights are still on at 9 o'clock. So that's
All
the
right.
best part about it. So,
All right. And how about you, Sonia? How's the weather? Is cold up there?
It's not as cold as it could be, but it's getting colder. It
Wow.
was 70 a few days ago. It's supposed to get down to 31 tonight, and it's supposed to snow on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Wow. All right.
I'm sorry, I tuned out when you were talking. It sounded like you said it's supposed to snow.
Yeah, snow. They're getting
Okay,
It
what
may
snow.
or
then?
may not. It may or may not stick. They don't know yet.
But you're
But
gonna get some.
and there's a chance we got some last night overnight, but because it rained all yesterday.
Wow.
So, were you all sacrificing groundhogs or something that this is happening, or what?
Yes.
It's coming down off of Canada. Is all
Hmm.
what I best I can tell.
All
Yeah,
right.
take that for a tariff. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay. And how about you, Nikki? You have different weather to give today. Go ahead, give that weather.
I don't know what's going on in South Florida. I'm here in Dallas, Texas with my sister
Yay.
Penelope, and it is cold. I'm going to tell you, it is so
Hmm.
cold. I'm still in bed with my pajamas on, undercover with a heater. I'm not
Yeah.
used to
Okay.
this.
Yeah. It's definitely a little colder than we thought it would be. This time of year, you think it's going towards spring, and it was warmer, but then we just got this cold front that just ran through over the past few days. So we're not suffering, but we're not having the best of time because it's been rainy as well. So it's been interesting,
I think that's what's going to swoop down and come up towards us some kind of weird way.
and that's why you're getting the snow because you're getting our rain.
Yeah.
Ooh, well, you have fun with that because it has not been fun here. I mean, granted, we need some rain, but
Yeah, they're talking
not
about
like this.
possible of flash flooding.
Yeah, that's not the good stuff. That's the unfun stuff.
Yeah, when it just hangs out, and I like it here. I'm going to visit for a while.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, this topic that we're going to discuss, we put out, an all call for topics, and we worked on them the previous week. Sonia and Nikki and Otto. But interesting enough, we're starting out with the topic that Cranston posited in the middle of the week. And that was the issue of, our heroes. And, when you see our topic, it's like, did your favorite rapper just come out as a reTHUGlican? Did the author whose work you grew up with suddenly come out as some variety of phobe? Did you discover that when your favorite actor was portraying a misogynist, a misanthrope, or a bigot, that they weren't acting? Was your favorite athlete really no one's role model? Whose real self most disappointed you? So here we are today discussing uh, the topic of when our when what do we call it? When
When?
ignorance was bliss. Before
Yeah.
we learn the seamy side of our heroes. So Cranston, you had some things here about written writers and rappers and stuff. So who was it that's comes to mind as one of those individuals that you must walk the walk of shame with because of your previous um, alliances or love of.
Well, it's interesting we should be talking about this because this last week was really typical. I think it was, let me see, Thursday. There was a story that, and first of all, none of these people were not even in the top 25 of the people that I have had to kind of think about after a while. But Thursday, there was a story that came out that that it'll come back in a minute. That John Claude Van Damme, who was okay, I mean, I like Time
Hmm.
Cop, I like
Hmm.
Universal Soldier,
Hmm.
stuff like that. I wasn't really shocked that neither one of those got any Academy Award nominations, but still, I could watch one of his movies. And the story comes out that he's being investigated in Romania for accepting, I think, 5 women who he knew up front were being trafficked to be his guests at his party, this
Wow.
party that he had. So, and it wasn't like he didn't find that out until the next day or he didn't check IDs. He knew up front what the deal was and went ahead with it. The
Wow.
next day, the story came out that Paul Schrader, who I think who wrote among other things, Taxi Driver and Raging Bull, and I think he won an Academy Award for at least one of those. Had been harassing his assistant for the last 4 years,
Wow.
and they had reached an out of court, NDA, blah 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 settlement, and then when it came time for him to honor the settlement, he changed the agreement, and then he restructured the narrative so it made it sound like it was her problem and not his problem,
Wow.
and used the excuse for some of the things that he had done. And this is a guy who was 78 years old, and I'm not quite there yet, but there are days that I walk by the mirror when I get out of the shower and say, I don't know how many people I want to really see this. But he had said that he's dying, and he couldn't pack his own bags, and so could she come and pack his bags? And he, of course, answered the door, wearing nothing but a bathrobe, which was not fully secured. Okay, that was that day. The next day, there is a story that they are investigating Russell Brand, who had been sort of crossed between canceled and accused of a number of sexual assaults that he had done on women. And his excuse for that was that he didn't really do that and stuff because he said, yeah, he did blame it on drugs and
Hmm.
irresponsibility, but he said it was all consensual, that notwithstanding, and that he's a born again Christian. He's also a Trump supporter
Oh
and
Lord.
some other stuff going on. And the picture accompanying the story, I think somebody did that deliberately because he was saying you just have to look into his eyes, and you can see that he is not the person that these stories say he is. But if you look at that picture and stuff, the first thought that'll pop into your mind is, are they going through security tapes from Lowe's and Home Depot to see if he was picking up, barrels of acid, boxes, and rolls of plastic. So,
It kind of looks like ah, look into
Okay.
my eyes and you can tell it's not me.
yeah,
Wrong picture.
like I wouldn't do a thing like that. Yeah, sure you wouldn't and
No,
stuff.
not
And
me.
as you make sure you're between them and the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also pose one, and this is another thing. There are a lot of people that you kind of like things about them, but you're not a big
Mhm.
supporter of them, but they're okay. And one most recent for me was, of course, Snoop. And there were things I liked about him, like if you can say that you can say that he was a 420 friendly long before it became popular, and he's so popular that he can get away with it. They can make commercials that he was in, where there was one he did with Martha Stewart
Mhm.
and Willie Nelson, where he had stole all of their lighters and everything. Chuckle, chuckle, chuckle.
Mhm.
And there were a lot of good things he had done. He wasn't caught up in any kind of scandals, or he didn't attend any Diddy parties. I think one of his daughters had a couple of years ago now had graduated, medical school and everything. So he had done a lot of positive things and stuff. And then he became so mainstream, you could not blink without seeing him come up somewhere. Until the same time he started coming up everywhere was when he had done this thing on I guess on TikTok back in 2020, where he was really just dragging everybody through the mud, all the black performers who had
Mhm.
said they were going to appear at one of the inauguration events for 2017 for Donald Trump. And he was just dragging them out, and you could hear the people he was talking to and with giggling in the background because they were all into it. Flash
Mm-hmm.
forward 8 years, and the next thing you know is he's hosting one of the inauguration events. And the bad thing about it is, as typical of Black MAGA supporters or Black MAGA adjacent people, that it wasn't even one of the main events. It was like an off-campus pre-event that not only did Trump not show up to, but he didn't even send a representative to show up for it. And the question you have to ask yourself is, so why are you there?
Mhm.
Because it's not like he needed the money. It's not like he needed the exposure. So, I mean, maybe he wanted access, but access to what? And when everybody called him out on it, because he lost like half of his online
Mhm.
supporters and stuff, I think within a couple of days and everything, that he pulled the black people need to stick together and don't drag each other down, and we need to celebrate each other and not hate on each other and stuff like that. And so the fact that he just did all of that, and rather than saying, well, you don't understand, or I was blackmailed into it or something, or what
Mhm.
else, uh, he just said, it's not, I don't have a problem, it's y'all that have the problem. So
Right, right. Right, and he gets to say that, but still we don't got to spend our money on him or
yeah.
anything that he's associated with or anybody, any brand that he's associated with. You know, we don't have to do those things either. And I think, yeah, I mean, if that was a person that I didn't think, one way or the other really about Snoop Dogg, except, oh, he's like really broadening his horizons,
Hmm.
doing his, mainstream commercials and his K-pop stuff and,
Supporting
you
all the
know,
Olympic stuff.
right, right, yeah. So, you're
Hmm.
thinking, okay, I mean, not one way or the other. And then, it's kind of like, whoa, what is this? But I'll tell you, I recall back when many of these, rappers, these reTHUGlicans, you know, they who committed, crimes of people in their families that committed crimes, and they're basically for sale. That
Hmm.
somebody comes in and pardons their friend, pardons whoever, all
That's
of a
why
sudden
Snoop Dogg
now,
is the way he is now,
yeah,
because Trump pardoned one of his friends the last when he left office the last
mhm,
time.
yeah, and you can't. I mean, you that much for sale, you know. I mean, I would have more respect if you paid the man money than to go out there and you know, promote him, promote his position. Even if you don't promote specific parts of his plank, the fact that you're standing there next to them, really is so disheartening.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
It's so disheartening, and then to complain later, that people are treating him, in a negative way, seeing him in a negative light. You should not do this, blah, blah, blah. Shouldn't you have, like, you have such a presence? Why didn't you do survey ahead of time
Mhm.
and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What y'all think about it? And then when nobody said anything or everybody said, yeah, that would be fine, you go back and say, well, wait a minute. I asked you all. You said everything would be fine. But no, he made this decision and now he has to live with it.
Well,
I
that's
feel
the
the
other
same
thing.
way about
Hmm.
I feel
Well,
the
that's
same way about Ice Cube. I don't
Exactly.
mm-mm.
Ice Cube, same thing. It's like these people, and I think there's this whole category of people who are doing whatever they think they need to do to remain relevant and to become still remain seen. They don't have much of a career left in either their singing or their acting or whatever it is they're doing. So they become, celebrities at the definition a person's famous for being famous. They're all trying to, elbow their way into that category. So yeah, I definitely Ice Cube, and when he starts speaking back many years ago, several years back, making these proclamations as if he is speaking on behalf of the entire black community. When last I looked, nobody elected him for
mhm.
anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so how are you to speak on behalf of the entire community? You don't know the entire community. You don't. I mean, even within our community, we have different regional differences. You know, from community, from state to state to state, we got differences. So how can one person who hasn't visited, um, worked with, interacted with all of us, or some part of all of us, some representative form of all of us, make these determinations as to how it is that we are? And I know a lot of it is this Hollywood thing where there is this stereotype that's created about Black people. And then after they create this stereotype, in order to be considered authentic, we have to continue mimicking their stereotype or we're considered inauthentic. I was watching this show the other day. It was one of those days with SZA and Kiki Palmer. And as I was watching it, I don't know. And I haven't been, around, you know, neighborhood apartments and stuff like that in quite a while. So I don't know if they're still doing a lot of the stuff they have in this film, but a lot of that stuff looks like things that were going on when I was, a kid. You know, in the 80s and 70s, and they're still acting as if this is the way our community lives today. And I don't know. I don't think all that is quite true. I think again, a lot of these things are stereotypes that they believe people have come to understand or come to believe are what we're like, so they put them out there. So I do not, the young woman who wrote this, her last name was Singleton. I looked it up. I don't know if she's related at all to like John Singleton or anything, or she just, someone who just came up with that name. But I wonder, to make these comedies that they have about the foibles, of the black communities, if, everybody is, you know, at this certain level and either ignorant or that we consider just barely, being competent is this uh, big accomplishment. So, I'm concerned about it. And, when I say, well, what is it? How does this relate to our heroes and individuals like that? That um, back, in the day when Issa Rae was doing Awkward Black Girl, which was, again, genius. And she came out in favor of this, saying, okay, this is, gotta go see it, gotta, watch it, whatever. And I did. So I'm just kind of looking at this Ray and I'm asking because I mean I didn't watch what is it, Insincere? What's the name of it?
Yeah,
In-
insincere,
Ins-
insecure.
Insecure, because I thought it was that same type of thing. This um, point of view they have about how black people interact with each other that I I never saw. When I was a young professional. I didn't interact with people like that. I didn't see, you know, uh, black women attorneys that I knew acting the way that they had was in Molly or whatever her name is, acting on that show. I never saw that. So I was so where are they getting this from? And why would you put that out there that this is how, our people are? And you know, so I guess I should not have I should have known, that this was gonna happen. I didn't quite finish it yet. I'm in the middle of it, but I will finish so that I can make an actual complete review of it. But I would say, watch it, you know, if you want, make your own conclusions about it. But yeah, for me it was hmm, hmm, yeah. And I we talk about the people also who are, in real life, if they are is they weren't what we thought they were. Now, when I was a young, kid, remember the John Voight movie Conrack? They had it on television. We saw it. And so you think this is a person who has certain leanings, correct? And I think it was who was it? I think it was Yuri Kazan who they gave like a special Oscar or something to. And I remember everybody standing up and applauding, and John Voight not standing. And it's because he named names, and everybody's standing up and applauding, his accomplishments. And I remember De Niro, being at the dais and lauding him, but Voight didn't stand because he named names. And I was like, okay, then this is. I thought he's more normal than the rest of these people, who stood and applauded and everything. It's like, but if you name names, uh, why is anybody applauding you? So for these reasons, I thought he was normal. And then I found out, okay, that he associates with crazy people. So, wow, I was very surprised that he was one of those people who was crazy. So these things that they put out either by demeanor and or what Otto likes to call virtue signaling, that these aren't really truly who they are. So we have a lot of people again using Otto's phrase that do a lot of virtue signaling who really aren't what we think they are.
Yeah, well, that's why I just tell myself after those things happen, say, well, that's why they call it acting, because you found out they're just saying the lines that somebody told them to say, and that's it. And also, if these people had a grasp on the way reality really works, that they'd be doing something other than acting.
Yeah, I mean, but acting, I think it's fine. But I always think, okay, this person is acting. They're taking on a role. Some people take on a role because they say, hey, I see myself getting an Oscar. I'm going for it with this role. I may not believe everything in this role, the fact that with the horrors that these people accomplished, but I see an Oscar, in this. Beyond that, you think people read for roles and they say, you know what, this is a role that I really like to play. It speaks to me. You know, um, I have certain core beliefs, and this role supports my core beliefs. And then you find out, yeah, no, they're just reading, like you say, they're just reading a role and nothing to do with their core beliefs. But I always thought that at first, that people sought out roles that, established or supported, some beliefs that they had.
Yeah, well, sometimes there is a disappointment that they do. I never thought that Kelsey Grammer was this
Wow,
real
real, exactly. I was shocked.
conservative, and
Shocked.
then and the thing is that he has done a lot of either these direct to video or things that push conservative viewpoints. Like there had this big thing where he was playing Patton in some other thing that went off or something like that, and that he does not apologize or try to justify it. He's just a happy arch conservative and everything. And but the thing is, he seems to get along very well with the people that he works with or worked with and everything. But you just said, well, really.
Well, I mean, what in that? What you say that? he like gets along, well with the people he works with. But the reality is that, if you go in there and you go into work and you're not talking about your political views, etc., sure,
Hmm.
and if you feel like, you live in a world where everything's just sewn up for you, you don't have to, press your uh, position on anybody because you figure the world is created for you.
Hmm.
And for myself, I guess, being from the East Coast, whenever we see people who are, supposedly, smart or and witty, whatever, that we always think they're left leaning. But then you have to consider that, this is something that someone wrote, and that this individual who is Frasier may be left leaning, but the individual that is playing the role is not. I mean,
Hmm.
I think when I peeped that card was that show Girlfriends, and I knew several people that watched it. I tried to watch it, I thought it was garbage, and I wondered, all these actresses who I have, some respect for, especially Tracy Ellis Ross, that why would you all step into these roles as opposed to, again, be professional, semi-professional black women and have them act the way that they do? You know, I never understood that. And after I, understood what was going on, like Kelsey Grammer, of course, he'd produce something like this that makes, black women look like a joke. And, I would hope that, our, women, our actresses would not participate in something like that. But, they want to get paid, but don't think about what the long-term effect is when you're trying to be in another role. And everyone only sees these roles where, our people are presented in a certain way as being authentic. So, yeah, I have issues, but I mean, again, as an actor, yeah, he does all his little acting things. Great, great, great. But that real life guy, I definitely I
Well,
can live without.
well, sometimes I think it could be the thing like when you hear about something that's been on for a while, it's not uncommon for the actors to say, well, when we started doing this, we never thought it was going to last that long.
Hmm.
And maybe in the back of your mind, you tell yourself, okay, after this goes off the air, I'll have enough exposure to get something else later on. And
Right,
then, you get the good parking space and the nice trailer
right.
and the paychecks are coming in regularly and stuff. And
Hmm.
you say, well, you tell yourself, well, like 5 years from now, I'll do the Harriet Tubman story, and that'll be the one they'll remember me for. But nobody will remember that I was Pookie in this show and stuff later on.
Right. Yeah, that's just true. Right. Otto, did you have anything to add? I hope you can hear us. That's his
Yeah,
muted.
I hear you.
Hmm. I was asking if you had anything to add.
Well, I think that we 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 put on people what we want to, and what they act like, and I think that that's Charlton Heston marched with Dr. King. I mean,
Hmm.
there's film of him doing it,
Hmm.
and then he became who people know him as when just before he died, and the same thing with Clint Eastwood, and a lot of it is that these people believe or so-called believe things when it's convenient for them to believe in it,
Hmm.
but it's not their core belief. It's
Right.
not their core belief. So it's like, I'll believe in whatever gets me ahead or makes me be seen in a light that I think is favorable. Working with Kelsey Grammer is not the same as working with Mel Gibson
Right.
or working with Woody Allen.
Right.
And not only it's not only them, but it's also the people that agree to work with them.
Hmm.
Like somebody like Alec Baldwin and people like that agree to work with Woody Allen and then justify it. It's
Yeah,
just
especially after after they know that there's been allegations. Now there were people who worked with him before they knew the allegations. And I can see that. But then those who were after, and then those who justified it, even after, like Diane Keaton, for instance, who justified. He was always, he gave me jobs, gave me work, blah 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 blah, and n- simply because somebody gives you work does not mean that they aren't a molester, a killer, you know, uh, misogynist, rapist. It doesn't mean that. They just gave you a job because they could get money from the work you do. It didn't have anything really to do with you. And that's the thing that people have problems with. I mean, and another person in this category that, I mean, they weren't like my favorite or anything, but I said, oh, well, that's a person out there doing things. I don't necessarily like all the things they're doing things, and that's Will Smith. And then he's the Fresh Prince of Bel Air, doing all his little Fresh Prince of Bel Air things, and then little by little you start hearing things in the background about this individual, and then especially, I look at the way that people's kids act, or like that benign kind of neglect that you kind of see with people's children, and you wonder about him. But then when he put his hands on Chris Rock, that's when I said, okay, this person is definitely taking a psychological turn for the worse. Other things, maybe, but a thing done in public like that to humiliate someone. If he wanted to, if Chris Rock said some words, they should have said some words back to him. But to go up there and put his hands on that man, I had no respect for that whatsoever. And that is a person that definitely ignorance is bliss. You see the seamy side of an individual, and then to have him lauded, or he got awarded, an Oscar. It's like, oh, and then to me, that just really undermines even the value of something like the Oscar. But again, like you've told us before, Cranston, that this is an industry award. It doesn't matter what we as the consumers think. These are their industry awards. But man, you would think that they have better goals for people in their industry.
Well, the
Codes of
thing about
conduct.
What I was gonna say, but the irony is he got the award the same night that he
Exactly.
did it,
Exactly.
and by that time the votes had already been cast. You can't say, "Oh, we disqualify him."
No, but you could have
But
done is told him to march him out of there. And if
yeah,
the award was given, he should not have been there to accept it.
yeah.
So it just shows,
But it
that
was you
it's
could you can
ridiculous.
tell somebody in the room was going, "What do we do? What do we do? What do we do?" And they never figured out what do we do.
It's simple enough.
And
Somebody
so
put
I was
hands on
like,
somebody, and they should have called the cops, and they should have been escorted out of there. Because I'm going to say this: if Will Smith had gone up there and put his hands on some white man, they would have frog hopped him down that center aisle, straight out of that building. Okay.
everybody thought it was a bit, and then realized it wasn't.
I think that's
yeah,
true. At first, people thought it was, but once they
yeah,
realized that it was not,
Yep.
that should
yeah.
have been dealt with.
I had actually watched it, and I thought it was until he started yelling back at the stage. I thought it was, well, they worked this out, and it was a joke and everything.
Hmm.
And then you're going, okay. But the thing about Will Smith was that there were a lot of things that indicated stuff like that were going on the background, but they would
Hmm.
find a way to make it look cute or something like that. Like when he was doing Men in Black 3, he had this like 2-story bus that he like blocked the street off, that was inconveniencing the people where they were shooting, and they were playing loud music and traffic congestions and stuff. And he got away with it because he was Will Smith.
Hmm.
Um, and the other thing that I had a kind of a problem with is that his family in general would talk about all of these things that other people could not do. Like when his kids had said that you don't really need to go to school to get an education, you get educated
Hmm.
through life and all this kind of stuff.
That's a
And if you know
nonsense.
that your father is going to make $20 million every time he shows up to work, it's kind of easy for you to say that.
Exactly.
And then they would do all of these things that normal people would kind of say, I don't think I should do this, no matter how much I had to drink the night before.
Hmm.
And they would try to present themselves as being these like evolved beings because they could do this. And then when people started calling them on it, then they complained about, well,
Hmm.
people are criticizing us all the time. Yeah, but you put it out there. So,
Yeah, that could have been kept, quiet,
yeah.
in your own home, and not anyone's business. And that's another issue of so many people who find that it is important to tell everybody your business. And all of us grew up, I'm pretty sure, with grandparents, aunts, uncles, parents, whoever saying, don't put your business in the street.
Mm-hmm.
And they have gotten out there, they've gotten Hollywoodized, listening to these people telling them, oh, yeah, you should, your fans really want to know, all this stuff about you, blah, blah, blah. Say,
No, we don't.
yeah, yeah, we don't even need to know all that. I don't want to know all that. In fact, it makes people, don't give people any more issues to question, your sanity, you know? And I mean, a lot of times it seems to me that these people thrive on the attention and they will do anything just to get attention. They don't care what it is. And too many people now seem to be that way. And I know we've listed things, of course, the actors and the authors and the athletes, as well. People that you look at and you think, they're playing ball and they're normal, just doing normal things. It's like when John Morant, goes to the club with a gun and a pair of sweats. Like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
do you not understand that anything can happen and the gun goes off, somebody could be injured, killed? Why? These are like normal thoughts that normal people have, and people may be great players, great out there, on the court, in an arena, but they go out in the world and they do things that you think, what is wrong with you? You know?
Well, there is a coddling thing, like, and the thing is that even the people that coddle them even worse do not get anything. Like the whole thing with Patino and all that was going on in the locker room there, that he said, well, nobody told me about it, or I didn't know about it, and I don't believe it, and because they can trade on that on that on that celebrity they have, they can get away with it. One of the
Mhm.
worst ones is Aaron Hernandez. The whole time that he was at Florida, he was getting away with stuff that if anybody else had done this stuff, they would still be looking for the key that they had thrown away when they locked him up. He'd gone to a bar, which he shouldn't have been in, because I don't think he was old enough to drink at the time,
Mhm.
and got some sort of altercation with the one of the bartenders, and things escalated because he kept escalating it. And remembering that this is a guy who was like 6'5" and 2, whatever it was, and stuff like that, who spends most of the year training how to hit people, and he broke the guy's jaw.
Mm-mm-mm.
And what they did was they just very quietly took it out. They paid for the guy's medical bills, never called the police, never filed charges against him. He never apologized for it or anything. And
Mhm.
they knew at the time, whenever he went back home, he would hang out with his old buddies and stuff, and he would get into trouble. And either they would pay his way out of it, or they would just look the other way, or it never got reported.
But no,
So,
I mean, I look at the things with Aaron Hernandez, and I saw like they had one of those documentary things about him. And this is a person who I think who had mental problems.
yeah.
They had, and people want to exploit you
Hmm.
when they know that you are ill. And that's like John Morant.
Yeah.
And I believe that they exploited John Morant. He played really well, but I think John Morant was not um, all there. And after,
Hmm.
his incidences when he had, to sit out, several games, he's very different because I can tell. I would look at him, I watch his eyes, and from the very beginning, I would look at him and I
Hmm.
watch his eyes and I say, something's not right. But now he doesn't play as, like he used to be, that little supernatural way, but he is more focused. And you see his eyes, that calmness that you
Hmm.
have when you've got your head straight. But again, if I could see it, I'm certain every coach he had could see it. His
Hmm.
family could see it. But he was going to make money for people. So they didn't care whether or
Yeah.
not he burned out early and did not have a long career or
Yeah.
ended up, somewhere uh, injuring someone, if not even himself, doing things that were just on the edge.
Hmm.
And I think people when they want to exploit you and use you, they will let you do whatever because they think you is fungible. You know,
Hmm.
I use you and you'll make me some money, and then if I burn you out, grind you down, I'll just get another one just like you, or if
Yeah.
not as good as you, still another one that'll it fit
Hmm.
pretty well in the space that you
Next.
left open.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So even with our own players who are everybody loves them, but are they truly a role model? You know, and the individuals who I recall when oh what is his name? Just in and out of my head. With the dog fighting. Oh my gosh,
Michael Vick.
Michael Vick
Yeah.
dog fighting. Oh my gosh, it's so terrible. And Michael Vick has to go to trial. He got to go prison. You know, for dogs. Somebody, not even him, that his cousins used his house to do it. Okay. Meanwhile, Roethlisberger tries to rape a woman in a bathroom, and what happens? Nothing. That's what happens. Nothing. And people still, he's out there, he's playing, and people are not protesting, throwing, you know, uh, full cans of hash, at him when he's on the field. Nothing. So, I mean, I know he's not out there to be, a role model for anybody that I know, but the reality is that they do this, and then people think that all I have to do is become a football player or a quarterback or whatever to get away with these heinous acts, you
Hmm.
know? So those types of things that I
Well,
found
one
to
of
be
the ones that I had was, and you look back at it, and well, two things that I have, and there's a lot of debate that goes either way. But one is, of course, is Pete Rose. Now, true, you're not supposed to. If the law about gambling in sports
Mhm,
was kind of fuzzy, but you're not supposed to do it, quote, at all. But
mhm.
at least he never bet on a game that he played on, or he never bet on his own team.
Right.
But then you look at things now, and I was like horrified looking at this thing. I've never liked this whole thing about sports betting. You took a fun thing in the
Mhm.
office that you did,
Yeah.
and they totally quote monetized it, and you can bet on the final score. You can bet on where they're going to field the ball on a
Yep.
kickoff. You can all this stuff. The commentators come out and give you their picks, who they think you should bet on during each game. And I was looking at this summer league football thing on Fox, where they give a line where they give you an over and under as well as a point
I
spread.
really hate that.
Yeah, and I'm
I
going,
mean,
what?
and then we can bet by the quarter, you
Mm-hmm.
know, all this nonsense. And then they wonder why people don't have money and they can't pay their bills and they
Mm-hmm.
go into criminal activity, trying to make up for the money they lost when they
Mm-hmm.
lost their family's money. It is
You can
insane.
bet on the coin toss.
Yeah. Isn't that craziness? Craziness.
And the other one that got me was when he was playing. I think, okay, I'm going to miss his name of, but with the Dolphins, Ricky Williams, I think.
Oh, the one
And
who will not stop smoking the ganja.
yeah, and he was doing it not because he was trying to, necessarily get high, but he said
Hmm.
it was better to help with the healing than you're shooting you up with another shot of cortisone and putting you
Right.
back out there on the field.
Hmm.
And he got all of this flack about that and everything, and it kind of drove him out of the league.
Exactly.
Okay, a decade later, Aaron Rodgers comes along touting ayahuasca and everything. And people say, well, that's okay and stuff, because he can do this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you hear all of this crazy stuff that he never talked about before, that you said that it's okay. He gets a pass on it.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, not that Aaron Rodgers was ever anybody that I liked for any reason, but I think Ricky Williams should have had a longer career,
Hmm.
you know, and he was kind of robbed of a career, You know, anybody else? Otto, I know you're a sportsman person. Any sports people that I mean, of course, everybody knows, the comment, made by Charles Barkley, I'm not a role model, blah, blah, blah. But anyone that we thought was going to be some sort of a role model that ended up disappointing us.
Well, I'm thinking about the actors still. It's like
Mm-hmm.
they asked the actors who did Amos and Andy.
Mm-hmm.
They asked them why did they do it, and they said, well, it's a job. I get paid. It's a television show,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the same reason that rationale that people give today regarding their roles and their stereotypes or black people seem demeaning. It
Mm-hmm.
seems to be demeaning. That's the same. It's the same reason they give today. And as far as rappers are concerned, it's like when rappers start out, they're not saying the things they say when they get rich.
Yeah.
So once they get rich, they're
Yeah.
all
It's a different
they
story.
straight up Republicans or straight up conservatives,
reTHUGlican.
whatever. It's like if you don't have anything, then I want people to share. I want everyone to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all into socialism. I want to feed the babies and make sure people have shoes on their feet and homes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then when I get rich, I get my money. Then it's all about me and making more money, and so that's just what it is. It seems like money is the drug that turned these people heads.
Yeah. And like you say, I believe back in the day, you have individuals who appear to be is speaking. I don't like the concept truth to power, but at least speaking intelligently on things. And
Yeah,
then,
once
uh,
they get that money,
yeah. So
it's a
what are you
different
talking about?
it's a different thing, and
Hmm.
so it's like you believe in it at the time, but it's not your core belief.
Right.
If it was your core belief, then it wouldn't change, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
So
the core belief is opportunism. You know.
yeah, that's what you
Hmm.
are. And then the thing regarding athletes is like the stuff that no one cares about, that the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball make a big deal about. Um, you got to know it's some phony crap that's coming up later on. I mean, they don't even test NBA players for marijuana anymore. And it used
Yes.
to be people used to be suspended for using marijuana.
Thank you. Hmm.
They don't even test for it anymore. And so the thing that happened to Ricky Williams,
Hmm.
it shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
It's just weed, and it's a way to get for him to manage his pain. Now,
Hmm.
what if he drank and took alcohol? Then you would call him what a alcoholic, and
Yeah, but there's so
you would
many
give him
people.
help. You
But
would
so
give
many
him help,
people are alcoholics, right? And they still play.
right?
Mhm.
Right, and you give him help.
Hmm.
But the thing is that this betting and having athletes as our heroes, the problem is the stuff needs to stay on the field
Hmm.
because you risk going all in on your athlete hero. If you go all in, you're almost guaranteed to be disappointed. Almost
Yeah.
guaranteed.
Yeah, because the culture surrounding, athleticism, college and professional ball, for so many, many years, they promote, illicit behavior, you know, uh, people, hanging out with, here, we'll bring you some girls or guys, I guess,
Yeah,
too,
every
depending on it,
major league
whatever.
baseball player when they
Hmm.
make it out of the minor leagues, there's this thing that they do. It's like a cocaine strip club gold chain party, and those guys don't get tested for cocaine when they come into the league. But
Hmm.
that's a rite of passage that each player goes through.
Yeah,
It's
and
the
can
reason why you
imagine.
see gold chains around everyone's neck. That's
Yeah,
a passage that they go through.
yeah, we can imagine someone though who has a history of abuse and they want to make this thing a rite of passage, but in order to keep your career, you can't do it, or you'll be done for. So that's the other thing. It's like this concept that, you should be able to do this and maintain yourself. A lot of people cannot, they don't have that ability. And, and then once they, fall off the wagon or whatever, then people want to call them weak. Especially those who said from the very beginning, "I cannot do it." So I don't. It's interesting. It's who is it that we blame for that? Is it a system that they are getting ready to move into? Is the individual? Is it the peer pressure?
Well, a lot of
What
it
is
is
it?
like I don't have anything, and I act
Hmm.
this way, and then when I have success and I get something, I act a different way.
Yeah.
Very few people who get success and get money and act the same way that they acted before. It's like it changes their mindset, what they look at. It's like Will Smith. We was starting out. He
Hmm.
didn't have anything. He wouldn't think of getting a two-story bus and put it in the middle of the street.
No.
That would sound stupid.
Hmm.
It no longer sounds stupid to him anymore because he
Because
he has all this money and success, and
and
people
he
let him
never
get
had any
away with things.
and he never had any core values. He had nothing to anchor
It was
himself
an
to.
empty. It was an empty vessel
Hmm.
that the people that have the ability to pour money into you and give you success. They have no core values either, and they pour
No,
that into you, and
exactly.
that's what happens. And anybody who's on this podcast, we think, and maybe we're right, that we would be the same way if money and success was poured into us. But a lot of us, if money and success were poured into us, would we talk to each other anymore? Would we have the same core values? Would we the people that we know are friends and family members that don't have anything, would we still be in contact with them? We have to
Hmm.
ask ourselves that question. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that we turned into a Mel Gibson.
Oh
He
God.
just became a nasty sob.
Yeah.
Or Woody Allen,
Or maybe he
who
always or maybe he always was, and we didn't know it because he was acting. As you
maybe a
say.
Yeah.
Woody Allen, someone
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah, we think
That
he's a still, like you said, oh, it's a little funny, nebbish, guy, but he was not that at all. He's a nasty individual. I mean, and
Well,
and, and that's what else that walk of shame thing. Every time I think about the fact that I'm watching Woody Allen films, and ha ha ha, enjoying this stuff, it makes you feel dirty. It really does. I mean, some people make you feel queasy, bad, angry, but that Woody Allen, that you see how he really is, and then you sit there and laugh because it's like the joke is on you. I mean, it makes you feel very just dirty, you know.
yeah. Well, there was one that I had that it was from two different ways, and I remember when the when Tom Wolfe's book, The Right Stuff, came out. I read it and I thought it was wonderful. It was great. It's one of
Hmm.
the few books I actually read twice and everything.
Wow.
And of course, one of the real star of the book, like in the movie, was Chuck Yeager, because he was this guy who I'm not sure if he even finished high school and everything, but he learned to fly by the seat of the pants and became this
Hmm.
ace during World War II in Korea, and ended up taking over the flight school at Vandenberg, which all the astronauts went through at the time when you had to be a pilot to be an astronaut. And toward the end of the book, they talk about how when and I'll remember his name as soon as we log off. I'll remember his name and stuff. But he became a black astronaut who the White House had wanted to get into the astronaut corps. And it turns out that Yeager did not want a black guy in the astronaut corps. And so he told all the other astronauts to freeze him out, not associate with him, don't talk to him, don't spend any time around him. And he was also the guy was under the pressure of also having to do all of these press experiences on behalf of the White House on the weekends, and then get back Monday morning and go back into his classes. And he still managed to pass, but Yeager had put in this thing that said that if you put him in the program, and they knew it was pressure from the White House, that everybody who had scored on all everything they did less than what he did had to be put in there too, which they did and everything, but he just shut the guy out. And so when they selected people for the next class of astronauts, his name did not come up. And all anybody at NASA would say is, well, just these are the people we picked and we have nothing else to say about that. When the next class came up and he didn't get picked again, he kind of got the hint that he didn't really have a future with NASA. So he just left the program. And later, when they had asked, when somebody had asked Yeager about it, says, "But did you know that he became this sculptor who is noted and made a lot of high-profile sales and everything of that." And the only thing that Yeager could say about it was that he was glad he finally found something that he could be happy doing.
Yeah, that's not in the book. That's not in the book, and it's not in the movie.
That's not in the book. It's not in the
know.
movie. And of course, for the movie, they get playing Chuck Yeager, they get Sam Shepard, who you automatically like because it's Sam Shepard. Sam Shepard, who is like a foot taller than Yeager is anyway. And so they're putting forth this thing and stuff that he did that. But then I said, okay, that Yeager is really from way back in Appalachia. I think in the book they did say it was someplace so far back in the hills they had to pipe in sunshine, and he got away with it. But I said, okay, Yeager was a Southerner, and then so is Tom Wolfe. He has this urbane, persona and stuff, but he's another Southerner too, just like another Southerner that people give a lot of things for. Like I said, he was the president of Princeton, but Woodrow Wilson, another Southerner. And when you find out what these people really believe, like that the Woodrow Wilson has the distinction of being the first president to show a motion picture in the White House. And what was that motion picture? Birth of a Nation.
Well, the thing is also, it's like you start looking back at someone like a Woodrow Wilson, who was the president of Princeton, and he did a lot of damage, undid a lot of the work that Teddy Roosevelt had done in integrating the federal employment and jobs. And you could just imagine the stuff that he did at Princeton regarding black students.
Oh, he did. Yeah, definitely.
You could just imagine.
And one other person that was, and another thing was, when I grew up, in my formative years, I read a lot of Ray Bradbury because, he was really good. And unlike a lot of other writers during that time, he included stories that included minorities, that he always put in a positive light and things like that and stuff. So there was a good thing going along with it. But somewhere in the 60s, I don't know what happened, but by the time the late 90s and early 2000s came along, he had just gone totally different. The first thing that he did that made a lot of public thing was when Michael Moore did Fahrenheit 9/11. And even though being a writer for like decades and knowing full well that you cannot copyright a title,
right,
he tried to block Michael Moore from using Fahrenheit 9/11 because he said it was infringing on his title Fahrenheit 451. And knowing in advance you can't do that, but he
did it anyway.
Pushed it anyway. Then he was speaking out against affirmative action. He was speaking out against all this other kinds of stuff. And if he had lived long enough, he would have probably been at a Trump rally somewhere and proudly wearing a MAGA hat or something. And so you don't know what happened that made them get pushed over to the other side or change their opinion on things. But it's just this kind of, you just kind of wonder about, well, how did that happen?
Well, a lot of these white people like the what's his name, Charlton Heston, is personal. I think Charlton Heston was mugged by a black guy in New York, and who hasn't been mugged by a black guy in New York? And you think we mug each other. You know, we take turns. But he got mugged by somebody, and then that was it. I hate all black people. You
Yeah.
know, and then a lot of this could be that I tried to go out with some black woman. She told me that I was ugly and not attractive, and so it's personal. It's not like
Yeah.
it's something that flipped them politically, but they gave it a lot of thought
Right.
because there's no lot. If you're one way, that's a core belief. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing really in it that you could think about that would give you another thought that you would say, "Hey, now I'm against affirmative action and all this other stuff that allegedly benefits people of color and black people. I'm against it
Yeah.
all."
Well, I'm going to tell you the thing with somebody like Ray Bradbury. I mean, I don't know him. I don't know his thought processes, but I would bet pretty much it is one thing for me to allow you to be seen in a positive light. Another thing entirely for you to say, I demand that you not place me in a negative light because you don't know me.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you, write stories or have a point of view about black people? Well, number one, it's like I was thinking this morning of the film, remember Lords of Discipline, right? It's about the first black student going to one of these military academies, VMI, I think. And what is his name? Oh my gosh, what is his name was in it? You know what I'm talking about, don't you, Otto? You know that the film Lords of
No,
Discipline?
I know the movie.
Uh,
I know what you're talking about.
that who's the boxer who's playing the role of the first of the black students like VMI or something that's kind of like VMI. And in order to stay in the school, they like put him through it. And then in one scene, it's like you've seen these, guys like, whipping him, and he puts up with it. He puts up with it to be able to, graduate and then be that symbol for other black people, to come, other black males, I guess, to get through the academy. Well, the problem is with this is that now it's like this mindset that when people do horrible things to you and you're a black person, that you're just supposed to suffer in silence and then they will be martyred so that they can say, wow, that guy, he really did something. He's really great. And I think Thaddeus had written an article about this child, I think in Frisco here, who he had been bullied and put hands on by these white students at the school. And they were under some tent, I guess, having with a sporting event. And these people, came at him. This guy came at him, and the guy had a knife, and he said, don't come near me, don't, do anything, basically defend myself. He defended himself, stabbed the kid died. And so he said, of course, now they do this thing where they try to show this kid like he's a thug and blah, blah, blah. But no, he's just a kid. And he saw, I'm outnumbered. All these people trying to, jump on me and I'm going to defend myself. And again, I think part of that stuff comes from this concept of things like lords of discipline, that they feel like they can just say batter you and beat on you, and you're not allowed to defend yourself. And so it's like this mindset that is, comes around, for that about, especially, black people, athletes,
When
students,
they go low, we go high.
right. And it's like, and if you don't do that, if you do like any normal human being would do, it's like, I
You
am
punch me.
going to, that's right, punch back. I'm going to defend myself.
Every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
Like Trayvon Martin, a man comes, he's beating on me for, no reason, and I'm going to defend myself, and then he kills me, and nothing happens. So, in like that, it's just saying, well, what are your choices are here that you defend yourself, and or you don't defend yourself and you end up dead. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think we gotta all these films and the way that people idealize how black people are supposed to react to things. That's another, thing, issue, take issue with. And I don't know if it's like well, industry, that you have to take issue with that plants the seed. If you defend yourself, if you push back, then somehow you're a bad person. But you have to be like Martin Luther King. We walk down the street and we get water hoses and dogs set on us, and yet we have to walk quietly in single file See, we shall overcome. Or when somebody puts their neck, their knee in your back, and you're lying on the ground and you cannot breathe, they just will just lay there quietly when they know good and full well that everything that they're doing is done for
Well,
the
it's like
purpose of
John
making you
Stewart.
move.
John
Mm-hmm.
Stewart, he got angry at Wyatt
Wine
Cenac
Sinat, yeah.
for making Stewart and making imitating black people's voices. What's his name was running for president. He was imitating how he thought a black person sound, and Wyatt Cenac took offense to it, and that was the end of Wyatt Cenac.
Yeah.
So
Because you
it's
can't
like
tell
because
this
you can't tell
person,
me, what my limits are because I'm so famously,
right?
ensconced in liberalism and given all these, wide range of
Kudos, yeah.
whatever I could say whatever I could do the minstrel black minstrel voice, and the same thing with Bill Maher when he thought he could say the N word.
Yeah. And you had, was it who was on the show that kind of almost gave him a pass on it. And then
Eric
that's
Michael,
yeah,
Dick, yeah.
yeah, you know who. And then that one Ice Cube came on that show and said, "No, you don't get to say that." And I think he was surprised that Ice Cube would say that. No, you don't get to say
Hmm.
that. You know
We
that
invited Ice Cube on the show probably specifically because he thought he wouldn't say that.
right,
He would he
but,
wouldn't he wouldn't admonish him.
right, but he did, and I think he did not expect that he would say, "No, you don't get to do that." So everybody, I mean, again, the quest for relevance. A lot of these people.
The quest for
um,
hypocrisy because
Oh yeah, they got
Bill
that.
Maher is one of the people that always talked about free speech and
Mm-hmm.
canceling or something. And this
Mm-hmm.
administration that's in place right now is nothing about is all
Mm-hmm.
about curbing free speech, which is a real curbing of free speech, which
Yeah.
when the government does it.
Right.
Guys, this
And
guy
where's
is
he now?
totally doing it, canceling people.
Where's he now?
Yeah, where's the free speech at now? It was always the Democrats who were in the toilet regarding free speech.
They're trying to
You
make me
know,
be quiet. You know.
my show got canceled because I couldn't speak freely, which had nothing to do with free speech.
No, they do bad material. You know, and nobody will
Well,
listen to it. Hmm?
well, the thing is about free speech is that somehow people have a weird concept. They don't understand how the
They don't
world
understand what
works
it is.
because you are free to say, you can yell fire in a crowded theater as much as you want. You're free to do that. It's not responsible to do that, but you're free to do that. But
You're free to
just
do it, but
because
there's a
you did it,
consequence.
but yeah, and just because you did it doesn't mean that you were right,
No,
and
I mean,
you can
you go
get
to jail
called
because of
on.
you will go to jail for that.
Hmm.
I mean, that's because you can say it, but again, there's consequences for
Yeah.
doing these things. That you will go to jail. Because it is a police power that says don't do it. And you're violating that part. The police powers that we want people to be safe. We want people to not be injured. So do not yell fire in a crowded theater.
And you
You know,
can't you can't say jump to somebody who's on the ledge, getting
nope,
ready to jump.
that's right. You know,
And if you have a show that you say something that somebody thinks offensive, it's well within the network's right to cancel you. It's not
right?
free
Hmm.
speech.
Yep, it's not. It's not government sponsored speech. It's people saying things, and that's it. I mean, unless he wants to tell us, somehow it was government sponsored speech, I would like to know. That'd be very interesting.
Hmm.
No, I mean, I'm looking at our clock and we're at the time. I should pass a little bit. So here we are, and it's Sunday, and we said we would do it, and we're moving the show to Sunday. Check us out when the show comes out. It's going to be, of course, on our YouTube channel for discussions from the Otherhood. It is also on my page, and we're going to make sure that, I mean, my profile page on Facebook, and hopefully we get our act together. Everybody gets to put it on their page. Yay. So thank you all so much for being here. And next time we will, get it out earlier so that you all will be able to join us for more discussions here in the Otherhood. Again, thank you. Take care of yourselves and have a great remainder of your week. Like,
Bye.
like